evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. Good morning, everyone. Today we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing Hadi Haboobi. A little bit more information on Hadi. Hadi is a mindset and peak performance strategist, helping coaches, leaders, and entrepreneurs grow their business in less time and with more certainty by entering into their most confident and focused mental performance states. Interesting. He helps experts embrace uncertainty by building certainty in themselves, by removing the baggage from past events that slows them down, reducing the internal critic that diverts their focus, and helping them gaining clarity on what matters for their personal and business life. This certainly was a phenomenal interview. We welcome you to the session. Enjoy it with us. And with that we say, welcome, Hadi Haboobi. Good day, Meticulous Moments audience. We are so thankful that you are back with us for another wonderful session. And today we have the privilege of spending time with the amazing Hadi Haboobi. Welcome, Hadi.
Good to be here, Juanita. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. I know that we've talked before. We've had video calls. I think we were in the same breakout room in one of our meetings at the Connected Leaders Academy. And I'm so happy to have you on an interview because you just bring so much value to the arena of leadership. So I know you, and I would like to ask you to please introduce yourself to the audience.
Great, yeah, we'll do. So my name is Hadi Haboobi, and I mostly help leaders and digital entrepreneurs grow their business and achieve their goals in less time with more certainty by entering into their most confident and most focused mental states from which they can reach their potential. And what I've realized is, a lot of us, we have so much potential and capabilities, but there's a big gap between what we're capable of doing and the actions that we actually end up taking every single day. And what I do all the time is close that gap so people reach their peak performance and able to achieve the things they want to achieve in a quicker way.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Hadi. You know what I was thinking when you were speaking? You are the perfect candidate for Meticulous Moments podcast because here at Meticulous, we want to facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And I can already see that there's two things that come out for me when you were speaking. And that was the one thing is that you help people to get out of that rut that they are stuck in sometimes. And the second thing that I thought that came through my mind was that you set people up for success. So you take them, you lead them, and you help them to connect the dots and, as you mentioned, to close that gap. And sometimes there are brilliant people out there, but they are in their situation. They don't see what we see from the outside. And just giving them that nudge or that information or that inspiration like you do helps them to achieve tremendous success. So what you are doing is very valuable. And I think that is really going to make and continue to make a huge impact in our leadership realm because we need strong leaders. We need strong entrepreneurs in our society like yourself. Now that brings me to our next question. If you had to describe a certain point in time, a moment of clarity, of when your leadership journey started, what would it be? Did you come to a place or something happened? Were you in an event, or just describe that for us? I would love to know.
Yeah, that's a great question. And to me, leadership has been kind of a journey of constant events that have developed me. But there has been moments where I would say there were kind of defining moments. And I remember a moment where, you know, when I speak to a lot of people don't realize that I was a very shy person. Only a couple of years back, I wouldn't be able to speak to a group of people. I had a lot of low self-esteem challenges, anxiety, insomnia, and all those other challenges. And I lived most of my life kind of surrounding myself with these very thick walls, because I felt like it's a great way to protect myself. There was a lot of things that happened during my childhood that were kind of a bit traumatic, that kind of made my mind always think I need to protect myself at all costs. But that came at a big cost, which is me not showing up fully and connecting with people, because, it's even if I was surrounding myself with a wall, it was it was safety, right? I knew, I knew where my place was, and it's kind of stopped me from really connecting with other people. And there was a moment where I was watching a few things from really Brene Brown, who is do you know Brene Brown?
I've heard about her before. It's a lady, isn't it?
Yes, she's a lady that talks a lot about vulnerability and courage. And she made me kind of realize how actually being vulnerable is courage, because being vulnerable is showing up without really knowing what the outcome is. And that's also leadership. Leadership is showing up without really knowing what the outcome is, and putting yourself out there. And when you put yourself out there, there's always going to be people who are going to criticize you and kind of poke at you. And that's normal. And to me, the moment I decided to make vulnerability a habit was the moment I felt like I stepped up as a leader to really show up and, make a difference in my environment and the environment of other people. And that's always been, I've always wanted to help other people or support other people, because I just felt like, even with all the things that have happened to me, I am grateful for the opportunities and for the support that I have. And I know a lot of people don't have that. And I've always wanted to be able to provide that support, provide that foundation, because sometimes it only takes a few different types of thinking to change your whole view about how the world works and how you see yourself, which impacts the quality of your actions and the quality of your decision making. And it's something that you kind of were talking about before, which is a lot of people aren't capable. They have so many skills, they have so much potential, but there's something that comes in the way, which is their mind. And a lot of the times we see our mind as this asset. But for many people, and for me, it was the case, it was more of a liability than an asset, and stopped me from really reaching my potential and showing up with my full capabilities. And in that way, my mind was creating that friction that chipped away out of my capabilities. And so I had to kind of change the relationship I have with my mind. And that moment that I decided to be vulnerable as much as I can, which is going to be very difficult at the beginning, but it's kind of like a muscle that you can train, allowed me to step into that leadership role. And it made everything very different in terms of my relationships, my performance, my ability to support others. All of that changed when I became more vulnerable. And that requires courage to be vulnerable, because no one wants to kind of talk about things that they're unsure of, or they're uncertain about, or that might make others think that they are weak, or things like that. But when you open up, here's the beautiful thing that happens that I only found out when I started to be vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, other people become vulnerable with you. It's like you open a door. It's like you're waiting for it. Yeah, exactly. And the amount of the the different conversations I've started to have when I became more vulnerable with my best friends, with people I've known for a very long time. It wasn't just like just random people, and with random people too, but even the closest people to me, it was like they were a bit also holding back, even though I've known them most of my life. And that to me was a beautiful thing that really opened a lot of doors, made a lot of connections, and I was able to be more myself. And when I was more myself, I was more certain about who I am, and I was able to embrace more uncertainty around the world. And uncertainty is something that we can't escape, especially for leaders, because you are stepping into the unknown, where I always describe it, leadership and entrepreneurship. It's like, most people are on the kind of the main highway road, and it's very clear, and you're going there, and you know where you're going, and then there's a turn that goes into the jungle, and the jungle, you have to make your own way sometimes. Like there isn't a path there, and so it is like going a bit to the jungle where you have to make your own path, and you don't know what's going to come in your way, but it's also a place where it's unparalleled growth and an impact that you're able to make in that leadership role.
Absolutely. There are so many gems coming from what you just described. I was thinking to myself when you talked about vulnerability, what came up with, we're all thinking the same thing, but we're all waiting for the next person to say something about it, because it's normal for us to fear rejection and criticism. And when you were speaking about the events that you went through, and I can only say this because I've been through it myself like you, when we go through all of that, we actually kind of go into the shadows, we go into ourselves, we become introverted about things because we want to practice self-preservation. That's a part of human nature. But when we really go and we look at the situation, really, the contrast to that is really self-preservation is to come to the fore, to take up that leadership role and to become the essence of who you really are. So we are taught when we are small, if you have a setback, go kind of into the shadows and, there's something to be ashamed of. That's not true. When we grow up and when we mature like you and I have, we realize self-preservation is really to fight for who you really are. It's not to, go in a dark corner and to hide, because I have to tell you, when I was in the ministry, I did exactly that. I went through very traumatic events as well. And, I kind of secluded myself. I kind of built up those walls. I only started to be where I needed to be if I had to be there. And then at some point in my life, actually with the passing of my mom, she said something to me in her deathbed, and she said I should live with intention. And after she said that, after I conducted her funeral and I came back, I realized I had it all wrong. My self-preservation wasn't to hide and to lick my wounds and to, try and not be ashamed or, fear the criticism. It was to step to the front. It was to say, well, this is who I am. This is what I've been called for. I'm a leader. I need to practice courage. So I resonate with so much that you've said. Thank you so much for articulating that so powerfully. I'm not going to say articulating it well. You articulated it in a powerful manner. And yes, I love vulnerability. We are all people. We forget that we are all people. We go through things. We fall short. We don't. Sometimes we have some personality flaws. Sometimes we have some strong points. But it's all the wonderful blend of humanity. And we find that in leadership as well. I mean, we make mistakes in leadership. All of us do.
Exactly. And I think there is that sometimes misconception that leaders are fearless, and that there's no fear. They're perfect. And that's so far away from the truth. And that's one of the reasons that when I first entered in my career, that was the error I made, which kind of made me always see the contrast of me having fear and making mistakes as I will never be able to be a leader, because leadership requires to be fearless and make no mistakes. But leadership really is, or even courage is taking action in spite of that fear, because that fear will always be there. And the fear is going to be there when you're doing something new and challenging and pushing the needle forward and pushing the boundaries. That's a self-defense mechanism that's there. The thing is, fear can be a good helper in that it can help us, but it's a terrible master. And when it takes the dominant seat in our mind, that's when we're in trouble, because we have a filter now that sees everything from that fear filter. It is a muscle. It is a muscle, and same thing with courage and fear. That they're both kind of muscles that, when we kind of listen too much into the fear, that grows that muscle. But when we kind of take action, the more action we take, the more that courage muscle is growing. It becomes easier to take more action. So, when you're doing something new, that voice will show up. And that's normal. That's okay. Thank it. Hey, thank you, fear, for showing up. It's there for you to protect. But then you have a choice. You have a choice on, do you move forward? Do you kind of make a few changes and then move forward? Or do you take a step back? And that's a choice that we make every single day. And of course, we'll have setbacks. I think for me, if you're not having setbacks, you're not growing. You have to have setbacks, because if everything is going as perfectly, it means you're not being challenged. It means you're doing things that are comfortable. Because when I'm doing things that I'm comfortable, then things go all perfectly well. But when I'm doing something new, or I'm pushing a new needle, or I'm learning a new skill, there's going to be errors. And those errors, actually, according to the science, is we need those errors, because they release certain chemicals. So a lot of what I do is peak performance, and I'm really interested in chemicals. But we release certain chemicals that allow the brain to change in structure and to be malleable. And it's called neuroplasticity, which allows you to make different connections. And we're able to make better connections quicker when we make those mistakes, because of those chemicals being released. So you need to make the mistakes, not 100% of the mistakes, but like the according to the science, it's 85% correct, 15% mistakes is what we're kind of the optimum target. So they're necessary. They're necessary for us to grow. They're necessary for us to serve and impact people. And it's always going to be there, and we're always going to be students to learn and grow, make mistakes and adjust and grow. And that's the way forward.
And really, that's the beauty of life. And that's the beauty of leadership. You mentioned that your mind can either be an asset or a liability. You have that choice. The fear will always be there. But you have the choice. Is your mind going to be an asset or a liability? And how do you choose that? You just acknowledge, like you've said, the fear is there. But you don't fear the unknown. You don't fear the mistakes. You do them anyway. That is the epitome of leadership courage. So I think this is this is a topic that we can do a whole session on.
Yeah.
It brings me to the next question. Do you believe that leadership is inherent in a person, or do you believe that it develops over time?
I think if you spoke to anyone that has known me for most of my life, they would say I am proof that it's something that you develop over time. Because I don't feel like I was a leader when I was younger. Even I would say 6 years ago, I wouldn't say I was a leader. And for me, it took a decision to become a leader and to step into that role. And when I made that decision, for example, a couple of decisions, one was to be vulnerable, one was to be okay with failure that doesn't define who I am and my self-worth. And two is to understand, what's important to me and kind of go after that in terms of what my values are. I was able to get clear on why leadership is important and what does it give to myself and the world around me, and go to seek that wherever I can and develop the right skills that I thought were important to become a leader. And that took, I think, a while to develop those things. So I would agree that it's something that you develop, and that most people have access to that role if they wish to step into that. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. But we're not just looking for easy. We're looking for growth, impact, and long-term joy, really. And I think we all have the ability to access those things.
I agree with you completely. I think people are a leader in their own sense, as a person, but it does definitely develop over time. Absolutely agree with you. And the leadership that we grow up with is not always the leaders. It doesn't always turn out. We don't always turn out to be those leaders. Sometimes we grow up with negative negative leaders that show us negative things. So we try not to be like that, and then we kind of develop further into our own leadership. Can I call it our own leadership zone where we feel comfortable? So I think we take a little bit of everything that we learn over the course of our life, and that really shapes us. It molds us into this beautiful creation, a leader. But you practice NLP, and I've only heard positive things of NLP practitioners. Now, I'm very curious to know, what are the main obstacles when you work with people with the NLP system that individuals face when it comes to taking on a leadership role?
Usually the biggest challenge is beliefs about who they are, what they're capable of. They have lived their life with a certain set of beliefs that all the times come in the way of them being able to access that leadership role, or access any role really. And we all have those limiting beliefs. We all have beliefs that have been formed when we were 6, 8, 20, even 25, that don't actually serve us, right? Yes. They served us at one moment. Our mind, the main function of our mind is really survival, and it's a storage of memory. And what the mind does is it's evaluating everything to say, is this dangerous? Is this not dangerous? Is this a threat? Is this not a threat? Right? And when it doesn't understand what's going on in this environment, it will make an assumption or make a generalization that might be incorrect. It will interpret certain events that will be incorrect, probably. And we all have, to this day, beliefs or events that happened that we interpreted them at that time when we were 7 or 20, from that limited capacity to understand the world. And we still hold those interpretations. And those interpretations create these beliefs, these stories that we have, these beliefs that still impact how we act today. Because how the world or how your mind works also, and how you act, is you've got beliefs in your values, which have been formed either from your environment, from your culture, from the people around you, that create these filters in terms of how you filter the world around you. Most of us assume that we're seeing the same things, but we're not, because there's billions of bits of information coming at you, and your brain has to filter that to say what is important to go to your conscious mind as opposed to your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is what you're aware of in any single moment right now. So, for example, if I ask people, how are they feeling? How does their feet feel touching the ground? They don't have to do anything, and their mind will now focus on that area and sense that. But your mind was already sensing that, but it wasn't in your conscious mind. So that's what I mean by conscious mind. And essentially, what you filter around you is dependent on your beliefs and your values and certain programs. And those beliefs create thoughts, and those thoughts create your feelings, and we act based on how we feel. So when you're feeling energetic, when you're feeling focused, excited, joyful, that's going to have a different impact in terms of what you're going to act on if you are feeling tired or fearful or any of the other kind of emotions. So your beliefs create your thoughts create your feelings, and you act based on how you feel. So a lot of the times people think that these beliefs are facts when they're not facts. And when we go in there and kind of change how we are interpreting those events, it changes how they see themselves, and it changes how they see the world. And that has a huge impact on what they see, the connections they make, the opportunities that they see, and how they act. And so I always say this idea of who you are is one of the biggest generalizations you've made, because you've kind of created it haphazardly because of what you thought was important, or what beliefs you were given when you were a child that you haven't looked at in this moment or haven't revisited. And when we go revisit those events, through this time machine we have called the mind. We actually have a time machine that a lot of people don't know about. And we can go back in time and revisit those events and make different conclusions and see different connections. And that has a huge impact in how you feel in the moment, about who you are, and about how the world works. So those things, that, going and working on your identity, on your beliefs, has a profound impact on people's ability to perform at their best and become or develop any skills that they want to develop.
That is wonderful, because I always tell people, if I have to use fruit, I always compare the subconscious with the conscious, and I say the conscious is like a mango. But we don't realize that the subconscious is like a watermelon. It's so much bigger, and it has so much more influence on our lives than we really realize. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and I think that is probably what NLP does, if I understand correctly, is sometimes people hold worldviews that they formed when they were 6 or 8 or 9, like you've mentioned, but they want to apply those worldviews as an adult, or as a leader, or as an executive. It's not going to fit. And I think NLP takes them back to that space and helps them to really mature their worldviews. And as you said, to filter and to cipher out, what do they need? What was correct? What's not correct? What fits into their space now that, or doesn't fit into their space now that fit into their space when they were 6? So really, we have to look at these things. We have to develop ourselves personally and professionally in a continual manner, because we can't hold on to things we believed when we were young, because we've changed. We see the world now in a different manner, and the world expects something different from us now. When we are children, we have a certain importation we bring into the world, and the world shapes us. But when we are bigger, that importation, that role changes. So we can't hold on to those self-limiting beliefs any longer. We have to develop as the time moves. And I think that is what NLP really does well, is to help people, like you said, to help them out of those beliefs and to show them really where they are going to.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's a statement that we use in NLP, which is the map is not the territory, which means basically there is the territory, which is the reality of things, and then you have a map. And we all have different maps of the territory. And we want to understand, what is the map that you're holding, and does it provide the information that allows you to perform at your best and understand the territory in the best possible way for you? Because every map, like our mind does, is going to distort information, it's going to delete information, it's going to generalize information, just simply because, to your point, our conscious mind is unable to process all the information available to us. The processing power would blow up. So we have to delete and distort and generalize, and the way we do that is based on our beliefs and values of what's important to us and what we think is true, to filter the information on that. For example, I'll just give an example. I've worked with some people that they don't realize, but when we dig deep, they suddenly realize that they think that money is the root of all evil, right? Now, if you think that money is the root of all evil, well, guess what? When you see rich people come, you're already going to have a filter that's going to make you react in a certain way. Or if there's a big opportunity coming in your way, you're going to self-sabotage because you don't want to be evil and you think money is the root of all evil. So then in that case, you're going to act to move away from that dangerous situation that your brain thinks is dangerous. That's just an example of,
So already there's bias. There's already a preconception, a misconception, because that is not, you're not serving yourself if you feel like that or if you think like that. And sometimes I think, and I'm sure you will agree with me, people do that without realizing they are doing that.
Oh yeah, it's mostly without realizing.
It's subconsciously.
Yeah, it mostly happens subconsciously. So you won't be able to know all the beliefs that you have consciously. It will take a very long time to kind of look into things. But when we look into things, there are certain things that have happened when people were 7 years old that they haven't even, they've forgotten about. A statement that was made here or a statement that was made there, and you've taken that as to be true. And what your brain does, a part of your brain, it validates everything that it believes is to be true. It wants to kind of, whatever it believes as true, it kind of sees the world in that way to validate it, because it wants to understand. It really doesn't like uncertainty, unknown, things that it's not familiar with. So it's rather kind of whatever beliefs you have to kind of confirm it in your environment. And that's how people kind of, as an example, I was brought in an environment that was that made me think that I was stupid. And I've lived most of my life thinking I was stupid. Genuinely, I actually thought I was stupid. And so what I did is every time I was looking in my environment to validate that belief. And it went to the extent of, I remember in the corporate world, I used to work in international tax and M&A tax, and I was having my feedback session with my manager, and my manager was like, "Hadi, you're in the top 5% of your grade." And the first thought that came to me was like, "Why is she lying to me? Like, why is she being nice? Like, well, what is the reason for it?" Because I had the belief that I was not smart. So how could I be? And I even when there was proof, I rejected that proof because I had a core belief that I was not smart. And that's how powerful our beliefs are in terms of changing how we see the world and how we see ourselves.
Yeah. That's amazing. You know what I used to do when my children were small? I used to sit them down, and we don't realize how important the words are that we speak into other people and over them. When my children were small, I used to sit them down because I homeschooled them because I was very busy in the ministry and I wanted to have time with them and make sure they had a good education. So I would sit down with them and I would tell them they are so smart. And I would tell them nothing is impossible for them. And I would tell them, you know, when you try something the first time, you just get it right every time. When they were small, Hadi, and they grew up believing that. And as I see them now, my son is going, you know, closing in on the teenage years, and my daughter is going to university. I can see those beliefs still in their lives because they try something once and they get it right because they believe they can do it. That's how strong our belief systems are. We forget, and I want to say to the audience, be very careful what you say to people. You don't know what impact you are making. It can be positive or negative. And Hadi, let me tell you something. I know you well enough to know you are not stupid. You are a brilliant person. So I'm so glad you came to that self-awareness to know that you are brilliant. You are the opposite of stupid. And you know that you are here transforming people, helping them through NLP to have a quality life. I commend you on that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll be honest, I am glad that happened because it's, you know, some people like it's, if you've had a perfect or no challenging kind of environment, it's very hard sometimes to understand why would someone believe that they're stupid or like even when they're provided with evidence, they would ignore the evidence. It wouldn't make any sense, but that's how powerful our mind is. And because I went through that, I now understand how the mind works in a better way, and I'm able to help people at that level in a different, very different way, where I'm able to connect, exactly understand what they're going through.
Absolutely. You know what you're making me think of? My mom was an exceptional person, but she was very shy. And she raised me to be extremely shy. And you know, when we used to sit in church and the pastor or the minister would ask a question, I would raise my hand because I would want to give the answer, and she'd take my hand because she was shy. She would take my hand down and kind of put my head on her lap so I would have to hide. So the first few years of my life, I also started to become shy. And I had to deal with that in my teenage years and in my university years. And it took a lot of work to break out of that shyness. When I went into the ministry, I couldn't believe that I was going into the ministry to do public speaking those first few years when I was young into it. And I really had to work through the fact that I felt mostly uncomfortable when preaching, when I started out, because that shyness always returned. Yeah. So she did it because she didn't want to harm me in any way, but she did it because she didn't want anyone to look her way. So we must be very careful when we work with our kids. And that's why I made a point of teaching my children the opposite, so that they couldn't, that they had that, they could be ahead a few years of where my progress started. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. I'm glad that you started that journey with your kids, because especially with kids, like, their brain is very receptive.
Yes.
It's all kind of like, give me information, and
Yes.
I'll take it on. So that's great that you've started there.
Thank you. Yeah, I've actually never said that on the interview or publicly before, so you are the first one.
It's an exclusive. It's an exclusive.
Exclusive. Tell me, Hadi, you are also a mindset and peak performance strategist. I love that. Please share with us your method of therapy. I know we talked a little bit about that in the video call, but please explain to the audience.
So I work mainly on three things, which for me creates that big gap between what people are capable of doing and the actions that they end up doing. And it's the actions that we end up doing, the quality of those actions and the frequency of those actions, that actually dictates whatever results that you're after, whether that's in your business or in your leadership role. It's not your capabilities. It's the frequency and the quality of your actions. And the frequency and the quality of actions are actually dependent on your capabilities, but less the internal friction that comes in the form of your energy, mental, and clarity obstruction. And these are the things that I focus on. I'll kind of describe what they are. Essentially, number one is kind of what we talked about, which is beliefs. So beliefs about who you are, what you're capable of. So I help people reframe how they think about themselves and how they think about the world, and reinterpret the certain events that have happened, whether they are traumatic or non-traumatic. It doesn't have to be like for them to be traumatic to have an impact on them. There are still non-traumatic events that still hold or limit their ability to serve at the best possible way. So we go back and change those things and kind of create qualities that is alignment to their values. Because when we have qualities that we have that it's alignment to our values of what's important to us, that's when we feel have a high self-esteem and certainty in ourselves, which allows us to embrace that uncertainty. So one way is to work in essence about the psychology. And for me, the ultimate freedom is freedom from your mind. And that's what I help kind of people do all the times, is to become free from their mind, because their mind is very focused on especially short-term survival, and what it describes as a threat and danger is very old-fashioned. Let's call it that. It's things that are happening right now where they're not actually dangerous to your physical danger. The brain will translate that into danger and move you away from those things. So it becomes, it's going to throw in. So, for example, presentations for me was a thing that my brain really translated into danger and threat, simply because there was an event that happened when I was a child that I went on stage and I just went blank and I forgot everything. And my mind translated that as never, ever do presentations, go on a podium, go on a spotlight. And for many years, I would do everything in my power to not do presentations, because I would have panic attacks and just anxiety, full blown anxiety, just 3 days before me doing a speech. And it's funny because now I do everything I can to do speeches and presentations, but my brain would translate that into, hey, every time you see spotlight or podium or you do a speech, throw in anxiety, throw in panic attack, throw in everything you can to make it so uncomfortable so that he doesn't take action, because we think that's dangerous. And that's how powerful our mind is. It will play games like this. So being free from the mind is a powerful thing. But even if you have the best psychology and the mindset, what is the fuel to your mind and body? What are you putting in terms of habits, nutrition? So a big part of what I do is habits and nutrition, because I want you to see your mind and body as one of the best pharmacies in the world. You have an amazing pharmacy that's producing thousands and thousands of chemicals that make you either motivated, alert, sleepy, feeling loved, feeling tired, feeling all those different things. And when we optimize our habits and optimize our nutrition, we're able to optimize our hormones and our chemicals, and therefore be able to really align those things to feeling the best way to align ourselves to our goals and our mission. So it becomes really much easier to execute, obviously, when you're feeling excited or joyful or confident. And those, a lot of the times, there's psychology to it, because the mind will kind of throw things in where it feels like you're in danger, even if you're not.
Yeah.
But then there's also the biology of it, like you need the right chemicals to be able to make the right changes in your mind and to be able to feel confident and to feel motivated. For example, dopamine is our motivation molecule, but we want to have it optimized amount, because too much dopamine will allow you to have a crash later on, and you'll feel like you don't want to do anything. Too little dopamine, again, you won't do much. Cortisol, too much cortisol, you feel agitated. Too little cortisol, you can be alert. So you need to optimize those things, and that is going to be dependent on the exercises that you do. What is your morning routine, your night routine, and what is your nutrition? So that's a big part of what I do. And then lastly, it's about clarity. It's about what are the high value or needle moving activities for your business, for your goals, and are you focusing your time on those things? Because a lot of times people don't have the right day structure to focus their energy and time on the things that actually matter for them, the things that are important for them. Because unfortunately, we live in an environment that wants our agenda to be other companies' agendas or other people's agendas. Like, companies are spending billions and billions to understand how your mind works, and they've hacked it, and they want to make you focus on what they want you to focus on. And every day, unfortunately, we are fighting a bit of an uphill battle in terms of social media and all those things. And everyone wants us to focus on the things that they want us to focus on, whether that's the people around us or the corporations or online. And to bring us back to what matters for us and for the people that we care about, or for our mission, requires a constant kind of situation where you will need to focus on the things, on the needle moving activities for you. So those are the three things that I really focus on, because I feel like they have the biggest impact on people stepping up to the identity, the habits, the feelings that align to their vision, their mission, and their goals.
Amazing. And I think I mentioned this in our virtual coffee. That is a phenomenal holistic approach, because it helps the entire sphere of the person, of that human being. We cannot address just nutrition. We have to address all of the other aspects of being human, of our humanness. And I spoke to someone recently, and I mentioned that, sometimes people are put on medication for certain problems that they have, and that's not a bad thing, but they're only put on medication. They are not being served on the soul level or the spiritual level or the nutritional level. And then the medicine only treats the symptoms. And this individual doesn't get better. And they end up giving up because they feel there's something wrong with them. Yeah. Whereas if they'd been in the right hands, and they had a holistic approach to their healing, they would actually go from strength to strength, and they would be healed. So it's very, very important. Thank you for illustrating those 3 steps that you take. And, I'm sure you have a very high success rate. And that brings me to your next question. Do you have a case study that you can discuss with us during your coaching years, that represented a phenomenal change or a turning point in one of your mentees' lives?
So there was, I do have a couple, and
I'm sure.
I'm trying to pick one. And I think I loved working with one of my clients. So I mostly work with leaders and entrepreneurs, but I sometimes also work with musicians, simply because they need to also perform at a big level. Yes. And it proves again that point that, you can be very skillful and very capable, but your mind can come its own way. And we see it a lot in sports and music also, where people have to really show up. And obviously they're capable because they've trained so much to be where they are. Yeah, they've got the skill, 100%. But their mind comes in the way. And I was working with a kind of a composer who just, her mind was really coming in her own way. And she was procrastinating a lot. She was doing things, even though she knew what she needed to do, she was just doing a lot of things that just weren't serving her. It's just the the self-sabotaging, the procrastinating, the listening to the mind, and kind of putting herself in situations that just kind of, just the, I wouldn't say the abuse, but kind of when you're kind of, and the negative thinking, the very negative thinking kind of thing. And we're able to kind of go back and work on where that's coming from, and why she thinks like that, and reframe a lot of these things, and change how she sees herself, essentially, kind of what we've been talking about all the time. And it's got to the point where before she was very, what do I need to do? Kept on kind of like not knowing, but by the end of it, she would come to the sessions with a plan every time of what she needs to do, and already kind of thinking ahead. And she'd be coming. And what I love the most about my sessions, and I always forget to do it, is the energy of when people start and the energy when they end. Because when they come, it's a bit of, I'm in a really bad place, and I'm helpless. It's kind of that helpless kind of energy. And when they finish, they're just excited about life. They're just kind of like, let's go. I have energy. I've got that energy to go and kind of make the change, and they feel more empowered, because a lot of the times we don't realize the or when we blame other things, or we think that we are not in control of how we feel, and when unable to generate the feelings that we want, or see ourselves in a certain way, we limit the options that we have, because we're kind of saying there's something wrong with me, or inherently, or there's other things to blame. So we are unable to see the options available in front of us to take better informed actions, better quality actions that have a really huge impact on our ability to serve. So by changing her beliefs, by changing how she starts thinking about how to plan and how to execute, and changing her habits, she was able to kind of go to Hollywood and do composing over there, which was great to see. But a lot of the times people also kind of come back and say, I don't even remember what the beliefs that were holding me back were, because there has been a transformation at the identity level. Because a lot of times we feel like, oh, this is who I am, and this is it. But reality is, who you are is just generalization based on your interpretation of what's happened in your past. Not even the past events. No, your interpretations of what happened in the past that have created those certain qualities that you think you have, that have generated this kind of self-concept of who you think you are. And the funny thing is that there has been thousands and thousands of events that happen in your life that you can prove just about pretty much any quality that you want to prove if you reorganize your mind in a certain way. So just that shift has had a profound impact.
Two things. I'm sure that case studies like these just fuel your passion more for what you do. For the value you bring to people's lives. I'm sure it is just so validating, to think back and know that you helped her really to become empowered. And the other thing that you mentioned that is so incredibly true is the way we interpret a situation is not always what it really is. It is our interpretation. Our interpretation is very powerful, because you can take two people and you can put them in front of a table with the same vases, and they are going to give different descriptions of what they see. That is how we are built. The one will focus on the vases. The one will be in awe of the colored water inside of the vases. They will have a different description of the same thing. So very important to know that. Thank you very much. I appreciate your answer. Now I want to ask, because you are helping people extensively, how often do you take time to rest and recover when you've worked with clients?
I'll be honest and say I do need to.
You're being recorded.
It depends if you're asking my wife or if I'm saying. My wife will say I need to take more time off. But the thing is, no, I do. My schedule is very. What I do is I plan my whole week, and I put in a schedule where I know exactly what I'm doing tomorrow at 11 p.m., for example. And I have the ability to do that because I'm a business owner and I do my own time. I understand that people are unable sometimes to do that. But I put in breaks. So every hour and a half, for example, I will take a step back and do something not related to social media or to things like that. So a lot of people think that when they're working, let me take a break and go on social media. That's still stimulating your brain and creating dopamine and those things. Yeah. So it's important to every hour and a half to have a walk, talk to someone that you haven't spoken to for a while. Just get out there. We need to move. Our body's made to move, not to sit down for 8 to 10, 12 hours a day. And so even like right now, I'm standing. And so that's really important to give some time to your body to do what it's been made to do, which is kind of to stand up, move, have conversations with people that you care about, and in that way you're feeding and recharging yourself. And what I would recommend is every hour and a half to take a 20-minute break and do that recharge. But then I do have a day off on Saturday where I do no work-related stuff, and it allows me to. It's funny because when you move back a bit and you come in again, you see different things, and it's kind of like your brain has seen different things. But for me, most importantly is sleep. I make sure that I have extremely good quality sleep because I know how important that is, and I know a lot of people kind of have different relationships with sleep, but I can confirm that is an extremely important thing in terms of your short-term, medium-term and long-term performance and health.
Absolutely true. And you mentioned that you sit and you plan out your week. And you also mentioned that in your case study, the more you worked with the case study individual, she came into the sessions and she had everything, planned out. So I can see how you influenced her to really put structure to her life. And when we have to take rest, it is of utmost importance. Like sleeping is so important. If I can't get in all the hours of sleep that I have to get, I try to make it up at other times just to get it locked in the vault, because we have to think of our health in future. So my next question would be, and that goes with exercise. We need sleep, but we also need exercise. How important is that in your daily regimen?
Yeah, if I don't exercise like in 3 days, I feel really bad. Not from a mindset perspective, but from a health and focus perspective. So exercise is extremely important for me. I, for example, will always, unless it's raining, and within the first half an hour waking up, go for a walk outside. And what that is important is that when you have light that comes into your eyes also, it allows you to release certain chemicals that allows you to focus, and then 12 to 16 hours release another hormone called melatonin that allows you to sleep. So it becomes really important to go outside and get some sunlight, because that's what tells your body it's daytime. But also I do about 30 to 40 minutes of exercise, not every day, but every other day. So about 4 times a week, I would do that, listening to a podcast or something specific that allows me to learn. So exercise, I do enjoy. I'll be honest, there's some people that don't enjoy exercise. I enjoy exercise. It feeds me. Yeah.
Tell me, Hadi, do you have any hobbies?
I like music quite a bit. And I like dancing to disco quite a bit. I don't know if that's a hobby, but I do enjoy dancing to disco. I enjoy listening to a lot of music, from disco to jazz, especially. And I also love trying different cuisines. But my favorite hobby that I don't do that much of is traveling for me.
Oh,
Traveling
yeah.
has changed my life in terms of understanding other people's culture and how they see the world, and that allowed me to understand different perspectives. Backpacking around the world is something that I adore and love, and I wish I could do more of, hopefully in the future.
You will, absolutely. I know you've set your mind to it, so absolutely you are going to do that. I know, and then you are going to have to share, your travels with us and your footage. We would love to see the world with you.
Definitely.
Tell me, Hadi, what is your favorite leadership quote and why?
So my favorite leadership quote, I don't have it memorized, but let me just quickly find it. It's actually a one that did have a huge impact on my life, especially with being vulnerable and leadership. Actually, and it's by Theodore Roosevelt.
Oh,
He was the president of the U.S. And he did this speech in 1910, and it's more of a speech than a quote. But do we have time if I'm able to say it?
Of course, yes. No rush.
So this is my favorite, really. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. For me, that kind of always reminds me, hey, you could be sitting on the outside and criticizing, because a lot of people do that, and it's very easy to do that. Yes. But I'm only interested in the people who are in the arena, who are kind of, again, pushing the boundaries and learning and falling and getting up. I'm interested in their criticism because I understand that they're there with me, and they are going through the battle or through the jungle too. I do love that quote. Not lie.
I have goosebumps, and I'll tell you why. I mentioned that I did an interview last night, and the power cut, and we had to get onto the session again. But I was interviewing a world famous martial artist, and we had the following discussion, and it relates to your quote. But we didn't talk about your quote. We were talking about martial arts in general. And we were talking about the fact when you are in that ring, when you are competing, there's a lot of people outside that criticize you. Sometimes you'll finish the fight fast, and then they'll say, oh, we wanted to see your skills. Why did you, you was talking about that. People would say, why didn't you knock the people out later in the fight? We wanted to see all your skills. And, that's if the fight ended quickly. And sometimes the fight would go on longer, and someone else would say, oh, you could have knocked this guy out in the first round. Why did you wait so long? And we were talking about the fact that when you are in there, really your own view and opinion and skills, and your courage, they are the things that matter, because you will find many critics and they'll say different things, but they don't know the blood, sweat and tears that goes into that training, and the anxiety and the stress connected to competing. And that's something that will never go away. It's actually a good thing on the one hand, if you utilize it for the positive, but they're not in there. So we can't focus on all the critics. We have to focus, and we have to remember our journey. And now you come the next morning with this wonderful quote from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's explaining everything that we talked about last night. I have goosebumps.
Yeah, it's exactly the way you explained it, really. And it does require a choice whether you want to be in the arena or not. And I'm not gonna lie to you and say it's a easy place to be in. But once you're in there, it's hard to go back, because you open up a very different door with different opportunities and a different view of life and different energy being that allows you to grow in a way that you've never known, that allows you to impact and serve in a way that you've never known. And it can be a very beautiful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. My next question is, who is your role model?
I'm not a role model. I don't think I have many role models. I mean, I do, but it's not people I specifically follow for a very long time. Mm-hmm. One person that I do like his work quite a bit is Brendan Burchard. He's a kind of a peak performance kind of expert coach. And I've been following his work for quite a while. That I enjoy his work. Yeah. In terms of other role models, maybe if I speak about books that maybe people have written, Tony Robbins, some of his books have been very profound, and he was talking about a lot of this a very long time ago. Some of his books were like in the 90s, and it's things that we're talking about right now. It's amazing. Other things that changed my life is kind of the power of now. I forgot his name. I forgot his last name, but that's been a profound. I guess in a way he's had a huge impact on my ability. But also Brene Brown, definitely.
Brene, yes. Yeah. Shout out to Tony Robbins. I mean, he was a pioneer. He's always been a pioneer. He's always been ahead. A lot of things that he said many years ago, like you've mentioned, are very followed these days and accepted these days. So that is phenomenal. Absolutely. And I agree with you. Sometimes and I actually want to tell the audience, Hadi mentioned high performance speakers, that teach you how to really develop what is inside of you already. I love doing high performance mentality challenges and courses, and it's really so valuable. We have to really make sure every few months that we sharpen that and that we learn new things, because it really develops what is inside of us, and it gains momentum. Now, I wanted to ask you the next question. If you could go back in your life and change one moment, what would that moment be, and why would you want to change it? It's just a fun question.
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I think I don't know if it was one moment, but I wish I was more me, as in, sometimes I wish there were moments where I was myself, more of my true self, and showed up more of me, instead of always thinking about what other people think. Yes. And for most of my life, I feel like, and I know a lot of people go through the same thing. We're acting based on what we think others will think of our actions, and in fact, we're thinking of what other people will be thinking about our thinking. So it's not even what they are thinking, it's what we think they're thinking, which is a perception.
It's not even true.
and a lot of us live our life in that way. And I understand why, like, we were watching a movie the other day, and there was a scene where someone made a mistake. It was like thousands and thousands of years ago, and they were kind of banished from the village, and they really struggled because when you were banished, 100,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago, like you were likely to die, and so it was very important to be liked by other people to survive. Because to be part of the community, you had to kind of always think about, am I able to stay with the community, to be liked by the community? So we have this kind of mechanism, but it stops us from truly living the best way we can, and being ourselves and doing the things that serves us and fulfills our values. And I think that's one thing that maybe I wish I could have done differently, but it allowed me to live very truly now. And I always feel like whatever event, because sometimes I'm like, I wish maybe my life had smoother bumps, let's call it that. But then these bumps allowed me to think in a very different way, and allowed me to understand in a very different way of what people might be going through. And even all the challenges I've been through, there has been very many benefits from them. And I'm now, as much as I had resentment against people or anger against these things that happened before, I now appreciate them. And I'm kind of in a way glad they happened, because they have these benefits to them that we might not be able to see, in those moments. But, there are many, many benefits to those events.
True, Hadi. And when I went into the ministry, because we are young and we want to make an impact, I also people pleased for many years. It's draining.
Yeah.
It was absolutely draining.
Yeah.
And what I just thought when you were talking about that movie that you watched, I think we discovered, the origins of people pleasing. Because they people please just to survive, and somehow they came into our modern world.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Now, we all deal with disappointments. We touched on that earlier. We all deal with failure sometimes. And what I find in the counseling that I do in the life coaching and everything is that people internalize that failure. They internalize that disappointment. They make it themselves, where it is really just the need for recalibration of a plan, maybe the setup of a new vision or a goal, just tweaking the idea. How would you tell leaders to deal with disappointments, but in a healthy manner?
So that's a great question. Disappointments are necessary. The challenge that we all face is that we attach our identity and our self-worth to what's happening around us, to our immediate outcome. And to a large extent, that's because we've been brought up in that way. We've been brought up to know whether we're good or bad by what our family told us, what our teachers told us. So we're constantly looking on the outside, whether what people are saying or what's happening immediately to validate how good we are or how bad we are, or our self-worth. So we've gone into this habit of constantly attaching our identity and our self-worth to the immediate outcome. So a failure, a setback now becomes much bigger than it should be, because it's an attack on who we are. And a setback is kind of what we've been talking about, which is you need setbacks to grow. In fact, to be optimized from a learning perspective, you need to have a setback of, I mentioned that 85% correct, 15% setback. So see it as a step towards the growth that you're going for, as a necessary step, not it would be nice. No, you need it to grow faster, because that's how you learn. Because if everything's going right, it's you're not going to be learning as much as the person who's making those few errors here and there. And the way I try to explain this to people is that everything, when I think about there's something big happening and there might be a setback and all those things, and I have to remind myself, okay, what is my vision? Like, what am I going after here? What's the big thing, and why is that important to me? And it reminds me of kind of the big goal, the big picture, and why that's, why is that connected to, how is that connected to my values? My values of growth, love, and service. Like, when I kind of connect that picture, and when I kind of expand my view of my time zone, that hour becomes much smaller than it is. Because now I've expanded. And what the mind likes to do is it likes to magnify the problem. So you're in a battle of taking control of your mind, because it automatically will magnify what the problem is to much bigger than it should be. And then it attaches itself to it. And when we kind of connect to the vision, connect to the bigger picture, obviously you need clarity around those things, and widen the gap of, hey, in 5 years' time, like, where do you want to be? And like, looking back at this moment right now, in that frame of mind, you see it very different, that setback. And you see it as an opportunity, because I to your audience, I will ask them, like, think about a setback that you've had that you are glad that it happened, because it allowed you to learn something new from. And from every setback, I do this with people. Our brain has it puts a negative charge sometimes on these setbacks, because it magnifies them. But
Yeah.
If whatever fear you have or whatever setback you have, what are 10 benefits from those things happening? It's like, for example, when people say, "Oh, I'm worried that I lost this, I lost this project." Okay, what did you like? Why is that a good thing? How can that be a good thing? It could be a good thing because it's going to allow me to understand what I need to develop or build. And it's going to make me kind of push to think about, I need support in those areas that I'm going to make me reach out now to people to get that support. It made me realize that I need to change a few things about my habits or those things. So it's going to allow you to adjust and change. And once you look at the long-term picture, has less of an impact on your identity and your self-worth. And everything for me is training. Like everything I'm doing is training me for the next game, for the next opportunity and moment. So when I think about it from a training perspective, then it changes for me the whole frame, because I'm just training. I'm just, even if I have a setback, it's not going to mean I'm going to stop. It's not going to make me stop. So it's just training me in essence. And if you have that determination and that commitment to go after something and understand that vision and kind of prolong that period, then you're able to much easily overcome that setback and see it in a different way and see what the benefits are of those setbacks.
Absolutely true. I love that. I love what you said. You teach people to separate them from, their individuality from the situation. I also tell people it's not you, it's what you are facing, it's what you are going through. And then also I tell them, the first thing we want to do as humans is we want to react. And I'm sure you will see that often in your practice as well. They react with emotion. Because they feel that it's an attack, like you've mentioned, on them. And I always teach people, don't act with your emotions. React in a logical manner. See it for what it is and then deal with it from there. And I think that's a big lesson for people to learn. I mean, you and I have learned that through our lives. We've had to, in the kind of positions, the coaching that we are, we have to not react in an emotional manner. Not everything is an attack. Yeah. Sometimes, like you've mentioned, it's something that shapes us, and I love the fact that you added there, we are in training. That puts a whole different light on that. It gives us a new perspective. We are in training. It is okay not to know everything the first time. It is okay not to be a novice at something when you've tried it the first time. It's okay to make a mistake. So we want to elevate you, Hadi. You've brought your knowledge and experience here. You've set out this time to be with us, and we would love to elevate you. How can we support you? What is next for you? Where do we follow you? I will make all of the details available at the end of the session as well, but please explain to the audience how we can support you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the audience for sticking out for a whole hour with us, and I hope everyone enjoyed it now. And thank you, Juanita, for having me today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Where people can find me, really, I'm quite active on Facebook. So Hadi.H Haboobi, Haboobi. I do have a Facebook group where it's for leaders and entrepreneurs to help them step into their most focused mental states. So if people want to join that, there's a link in my profile on my Facebook where I shared weekly trainings around those things. But usually, those are the kind of two ways to where I'm most active, I would say. I'm also on Instagram. I can send the links, but I'm not as active there, or on LinkedIn too. I'm still there, but not as active. Yeah.
Wonderful. So in essence, and I didn't know this, you have your own high performance mentality program going where you put that content out there. So audience, please, this is invaluable information. Go onto Hadi's Facebook. I'm going to do the same. Let's follow him. Let's use those resources. This is years and years and years of honing his skills learning from the experiences, the training that he's been through, his knowledge there, his experience there, it's going to uplift you. And let's follow him and cheer him on, in this journey that he is busy really transforming community and helping people. And that is what we are all here for. And with that, Hadi, I would like to ask you our final question. And this time has just flown by. I mean, we can just talk for days. But my final question to you is, do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience?
I would just like to say that there is so much power, so much love, so much confidence within you that you might just be scratching the surface on. And don't limit yourself to what you are capable of doing. It's going to be challenging, but we are here to be challenged and to go after the things that allow us to fulfill our values really and serve at the best that we can. And I think it's a forever journey of exploration, of both of self-discovery, and as much as we, as long as we can also enjoy that process, not to forget to enjoy the process of self-discovery, because that's an amazing opportunity to have, to be able to discover yourself and kind of at the same time serve and impact. So utilize this opportunity as much as you can. And, there is support around you. So if you do need that support, reach out to get that support. Every single person who has made an impact on the world has had support. There's nothing wrong with having support. It's actually necessary to grow in the best possible way. So if you feel like you do need that from anyone around you, do get that support on this beautiful journey. Just remember that you have so much within you to give. So find out what's in there.
Wonderful words from Hadi Haboobi. There's so much more to discover. Don't limit yourself. Let the exploration begin. We all need support. There are people out there that are there for you to support you in this journey. Thank you so much, Hadi. This has been phenomenal. You are an inspiration to us. Thank you for your time. And, I think we should do another session in the near future.
I think we need to, definitely.
Thank you to the Meticulous Moments audience for joining us for yet another vibrant session. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.